Okay, we should be set.
Thank you, Summer. Welcome everyone to our regular meeting here. It is 7:02 p.m. on January 12th, 2021. Summer, please take us through a roll call attendance, please. I will call this meeting to order.
Okay. We have Mayor Emily Niehaus. We have Brady Bradford from Southeast Utah Health Department, Carly Castle, Assistant City Manager, Joe Linares, City Manager, Kaylin Jones, Moab City Council, Karen Guzman Newton, Moab City Council, Clint York, Finance Director, Lori Simonson, City Attorney, Levi Jones, Public Works Director, Mike Duncan, Moab City Council, Ronnie Duresri, Moab City Council, Tawny Knudsen Boyd, Moab City Council, Lisa Church, Communications and Engagement Manager.
Thank you so much. Council and everyone, I would like to be a bit out of order here as we are joined by Braden Bradford of the Southeastern Utah Health Department to give us an update. We're going to take that update now to respect his time. Then we will move into citizens to be heard. So Brady, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It means a lot to us to provide us with an update. The big question, the big update that I think most people want to hear is regarding vaccinations. And then we may have a few more questions for you. How does that sound?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for the invitation. Some of this, I'm sure some people have heard, but I'll go through kind of everything we've done thus far and where we're headed. We received our first shipment of vaccine in December 23rd and have received shipments of 300 doses every week since then, with the exception of 1 week we only have 200. So our total, I think we're at about 1,100 doses, and those are split equally between the 3 counties that we serve. And as most people know, that initial tier was for non-hospital healthcare workers, as the hospital was taking care of their own employees, both of the hospitals that are in our area. So that's who we worked with for the first couple of weeks. That was expanded to include first responders, and that's a pretty broad definition of what a first responder is, and appropriately so, but it includes maybe some that we wouldn't even typically just categorize as first responders, but that's an easy way to put them in there. We had anticipated going through both of those groups through the end of this week, then starting with employees of K through 12 education systems, so the school districts. That we had anticipated running for 3 to 4 weeks, and then starting into age group categories after that. And this was based on the vaccination plan published by the state. As most people know, those groups were, we started K through 12 yesterday based on the governor's request, and those that are 70 and older are eligible starting next week. Though we are starting in each of our counties, we have a clinic this week for that age group. Now, initially we had only the ability to register via our website to register for those clinics, and we send out emails to those that have signed up on our email list. For this week, that was primarily because really we needed to give our scheduling apparatus an opportunity to work out the kinks. As we move forward, we will have the ability to take names of those people that really don't have a computer or can't navigate the website. We will call them back as we have appointments open up and we open up clinics. We'll set a certain number aside each week for those that are registering on the website, and a certain number for those that are calling in and putting their name on a list. That capability will start that Thursday. And we hope to have the next 3 weeks worth of clinics in each county on our website tomorrow afternoon. Unfortunately, the numbers still mean that even though the vaccine has been promised to an ever widening group of people, you know, we're getting calls from social workers and veterinarians and funeral homes, and everyone has a case at this point, and they may have received some indication from the state that they are eligible to receive the vaccine, and they are. But right now, that timeline is it's really, we're looking through the end of February for all three of those groups, just based on the amount of vaccine we're receiving. So we've had a lot of people offer their help and assistance in getting vaccines out quicker. And right now, the problem for us isn't staffing; it's just we don't have enough vaccine to go around. In Grand County, that for our agency, that hovers between 100 and 200 per week, just depending on various factors. So, but it has gone, for what we've been able to do, it's gone smoothly. There was a report today that some of the vaccines that have been held on the federal level to be saved for second doses may come out early, which would boost our numbers for, we hope, between 1,000 and 2,000 in any 1 week. Not consistently, but we would have 1 week where we could knock out a whole bunch and close off, so to speak, some of the categories that we've been kind of trickling through with education and first responders. Governor Cox has indicated this is his priority. We actually spoke to him this morning, and he reiterated that. And so we expect to see maybe a few more resources pushed this way. And though so far, just with the numbers we've dealt with, resources haven't, again, been a huge issue. But looking forward into, you know, potentially March and April, when there's more vaccine available, we'll need to have some other partners involved in distribution. Right now, a question we get a lot is, you know, why aren't pharmacies involved in the hospital? And again, it comes back to amounts. There's not really a lot of value in sending 10 a vial to every pharmacy and spreading out the vaccine. Until they can have enough to make it worth it, it will primarily come through the health department. That's the quick and dirty. Again, just reiterate that primarily moving forward, we'll register, we'll have clinics in Grand County. They'll be held on Wednesday and Thursday mornings for the 70+ age group. Primarily, we'll sign up through our website, but we will have the ability to take information of those that can't do so. We'll contact those in our list on Mondays and just fill them into the slots that we have available, so they don't feel left out or abandoned. But again, we're looking through probably the end of February.
Thank you, and very cool that in the background the Star Spangled Banner was being sung. It's a very cool effect. Thank you so much for that information. Council, questions for Brady? Does anyone have any questions? Karen?
I do, Brady, and it actually doesn't have to do with vaccination. It has to do with Test Utah and sort of the disconnect between our local health department and Test Utah coming down every other week and doing tests and having no information on our local health department website. Like, how are people supposed to know when Test Utah is down?
I know when we get information, we've tried to put on our Facebook page, but particularly since the last week and a half, it's the new year, they have ramped up their testing, the number of vans they have out, and we have generally not found out about those until the morning of. And and honestly been so preoccupied trying to wrap our head around the changes with vaccines that we haven't done a great job of getting that out. We think our processes with the vaccinations will smooth out over the next week so that we can rededicate ourselves to some of the education efforts, including with testing that we need to focus on. But this is just, we just had to react really quickly to the changes the governor's put in place, and so that's been on the back burner.
I mean, is there, I'm just, I guess I'm just curious if there's a way, it seemed like, I mean, you guys don't, like you said, you don't know till the last minute to have better, I mean, because I had to experience this before Christmas, and there was no information, and it just happened by chance that I saw the van at a hotel parking lot and tracked him down. And so I'm just like, is there a way that we can work in better partnership as Utah to, like, I mean, maybe put the onus on them? You know, I don't know. It's just, it seems like it's a complicated process, and I mean, we've had employees turned down from testing, and I'm just trying to.
Yeah, that's a good point. They shouldn't at this point be turning anybody away, and that's part of their motto for the time being, is that anybody that wants gets testing. So we will reiterate that that's the case. We can do a better job on our end just of finding out when they're going to be in town. I think from now on they plan on parking at the theater parking lot just right adjacent to our offices. And so I think I got yesterday an idea of their next 2 weeks worth of schedules, and that's the first time I've gotten that in a while. So I'll see what the Grand County schedule is, and we can push that out via the normal routes, and maybe just get to the government offices as well.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Other questions, Mike?
Yeah, Braden, you may not have visibility into this, but I know a lot of people complain about what appears to be a lack of planning. You know, like we've all known vaccines are coming by the billions, and, you know, suddenly they arrive on the doorstep and they're stuck in all kinds of places. In your opinion, I'm not talking about your organization or necessarily even the state and so forth. Maybe this starts back at the federal level, but you certainly know more about it than we do. But would you tend to be critical, I guess I would say, of efforts made in the beginning to fail to plan for the distribution of the vaccine well in advance, knowing that it was coming? Or did people really just kind of drop the ball? What do you think?
So I'll give you one example that applies locally. The federal government awarded a contract to Walgreens and CVS and CNS to work with the long-term care facilities and get them vaccinated, which on a distribution standpoint initially looks like a really good plan. This is one where we really wish they would have talked with local leadership, because we could have indicated that, one, we've got there's no infrastructure for any of the, well, CNS is available and has done a good job, but Walgreens and CVS, they don't exist in our area. So we battled after realizing none of our long-term care facilities had been scheduled. We battled for several weeks to try to get that contract shifted to someone that would be able to handle it. And I think locally we have some agencies that could have done it, including the health department. We could have had that done in really a day. But someone, you know, put a pen to paper that looked good, but it wasn't applicable, particularly in rural areas. So it was kind of a misplaced effort on that account. So we did succeed in getting those contracts locally canceled. The hospital down there ended up with extra doses, and they graciously vaccinated the employees and residents of the care center. And we got that fixed as well in Carbon and Emory County. So I think there was some planning, but it wasn't necessarily appropriate on a local level. Again, our two hospitals actually have done a very good job, but on a hospitals really essentially aren't built to deliver a lot of vaccinations. They're not a high throughput agency. So I know, on some of the bigger Wasatch Front hospitals, they were very methodical in how they got it out, and vaccines were sitting longer than anybody would have liked. And to some degree, the amount of uptake, the percentage of people that want it has been maybe a little bit lower than we anticipated. So where we had some vaccine reserved for some groups, they didn't swoop in and grab that as quickly as we would have thought. So a combination of those elements.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Other questions? Thought I saw another hand. Okay, well, Brady, thank you so much. Get back to whatever super fun thing is happening in your world.
Thank you. Have a good
We're
night.
really grateful. Thanks again for joining us tonight. Thanks for all your work.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Council, we are going to move back to our citizens to be heard section of our meeting tonight. We have received 9 comments at this point of citizens, from citizens submitting written comments, but we are receiving public comments by phone and online through Zoom. We are limiting our citizens to 2 minutes for comments. So I just want anyone that is watching on YouTube to please note that if you did call in, you're in a waiting room, and we will be adding you to be as a citizen to be heard now by the moderator. Hopefully you are paying attention to us live, because YouTube is several dozen seconds later. So Summer, I will turn it back over to you to help welcome citizens that would like to be heard at our meeting this evening.
Okay, we had 4 in the waiting room. The first person I had was Beth Malloy.
Great. Well, Beth, welcome to the Moab City Council meeting. You can go ahead and start your video and be heard tonight. And it's possible that Beth is watching on YouTube, and that we'll just have to wait a few moments. Summer, on my end, I show 2 other citizens waiting to be heard this evening.
We should have 3. There was one that was just a telephone number. But I don't know that
that one.
that person anymore. The other was Howard Trenholm and Gail Solomon.
Okay, I see the 2 of them. Howard or Gail, are you with us real time? And would one of you like to go ahead and unmute and start your video and be heard tonight?
I'm just watching.
Yeah, that's this is Gail. It's the same with me. I didn't want to really speak.
Oh, okay. So Howard and Gail, both, you're not interested in being a citizen to be heard tonight?
No.
No.
Okay. Well, then the best way actually for you to participate is to just follow us along on YouTube. The reason for that is then it makes space for our Zoom call here, and it gives you the opportunity to watch it, and you can even pause it and take breaks if you need to. So if you are not interested in being a citizen to be heard, I encourage you actually to move over to the YouTube channel and follow us there. And sorry for the confusion.
Will do.
So then my question then is with Beth Malloy, if Beth is interested in being a citizen to be heard tonight, or if she also is just following us along. Beth, are you there?
Yeah, thank Thank you. I just stepped out of the room. I had waited for about 15 minutes.
No worries. Welcome. And you're calling in to be a citizen to be heard this evening?
Sure, yeah. My husband wanted to talk. Actually, I'll see if he still wants to.
Okay.
I'll go check with him. I'll be right back.
Okay.
They finally let him in. Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, at this point, I'm just shifting gears. Thank you.
Okay. All right, he had stuff, but he's moved on now. Can he write his comments in tomorrow?
He sure can.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And if you'd like to continue to watch the meeting, then you can head over to our YouTube channel and you can follow us there.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good night. It seems that Summer, unless I'm wrong, do we have any others that have that are in the waiting room to participate as citizens to be heard?
Nope, we don't have anyone else in the waiting room.
Okay. And again, Beth, you can go ahead and just follow along on our YouTube page. There you go. Okay, moving right along. We are now at administrative reports. So we've already done a COVID update from Brady, but Joel, I will pass this over to you to take us through administrative reports.
Yeah, if you're following along on your agenda, we have Caitlin with Walnut Lane, buy local bucks update from Summer and Lisa, finance report. We're also going to have engineering and public works give a report real quick as well. So I'll be quick to try and move things along. COVID-19, City Hall still closed to the public, but we're still working away and trying to get things going and done. And so everyone can be reached at their phone numbers. They're posted on the webpage. They're also posted on our front door. We plan on moving into the spring, kind of following the same plan. We've had a lot of questions about rec sports. We're planning on having rec sports come spring, the outdoor events, and are working on the gym events. And so keep everyone posted on that as we go forward. But the plan is to try and open that up as we go forward. And the other major thing we have going on is the legislature of the state of Utah starts a week from tonight. So a week from today. So we've been working on that and attended league meetings this week. They are starting a new bill tracker page. Carly and I have been talking about how we're going to provide you guys a bill tracker. I'm curious to see what their new webpage looks like. So we've kind of been holding off on that a little bit because I want to see if maybe what they're providing will provide an ability for us to share that with you and go that route rather than reproducing everything a couple times. So that's where we're at with that. With that, I'm going to turn the time over to Caitlin and let her talk to you about Walnut Lane and then go from there.
Thanks, Joel. I'll make this super quick, and I provided an agenda summary in your packet for you just to give you a heads up. But I mostly just wanted to come before the council to give a quick update that we are officially moving forward with Walnut Lane. In December, we signed contracts with IndieDwell for those 8 units, and we signed a contract with Set Engineering to do civil construction drawings. As you are aware, Set has been involved and is a member of our Architectural Squared team. So they've been along for the ride and are now working on civil drawings. So all of that, it's kind of, we're pulling all of our information together to start going through entitlements. So we are working on preliminary documents for a pad site plan to bring to Planning Commission, and then and that'll be for the entire 80 unit development. And then we're also working on a final site plan for that phase 1. So just wanted to make sure that was on your radar. That'll be coming at you pretty quick in the next few weeks to a month. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But we're working pretty hard to get all of that together. We've also been working on some public outreach materials to distribute to residents and neighbors and to post on our website. So those materials are pretty close to being done, and we are hopeful that we will have some kind of outdoor public engagement event in early February. So once that is officially set, I will make sure to notify all of you. Would love to have you come out to the site and be involved with that event. So that's kind of it with Walnut Lane. And then on the planning side, just as we've gone through this pad process, we, as planning staff, have been taking a look back at the pad and the Wahoo to see, you know, as things come up, what kind of things we want to clarify in the code and potentially change. So I've been working with Nora and Corey on that. And I know Nora has her hands full with a few other projects, but we're hoping to bring some of those amendments to you sometime in the next month or so, kind of depending on timing of getting all of that done. But just wanted to make sure all of that was on your radar, that we are moving forward, and we are still anticipating that phase 1 will take place and will be done by sometime this summer. So it's going to be a quick few months, and we are excited to be moving on it. So that's all I had. Just wanted to come before you and thank you and tell you that we're excited.
Such exciting news. Thank you for the update, Caitlin. It really is so exciting. So summer, like early summer, midsummer, late summer?
We are keeping our fingers crossed that it'll be June, so midsummer. So we'll definitely, it'll mostly be kind of like figuring out the entitlements and the infrastructure that will impact the timeline. But IndieDwell is working on schematic designs of the units, and per their schedule, they should be ready to bring units to the site sometime in May, June. So fingers crossed, June.
It's very exciting. I know we're all really looking forward to a ribbon cutting, that's for sure. Just want to say, as soon as you get a project going, it's time to move on to phase 2. So, you know, please do bring to us. You know, it feels a little early to start talking about it, but as soon as we break ground on these first units, we're ready for phase 2. So, thank you.
Us too.
Yeah, thank you so much for your work. Any questions for Caitlin? All right. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys. You too.
I think Lisa is going to talk to you about the Buy Local Bucks program and where we're at on that.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome,
I wanted to show you what we have on our website, and then Summer is also going to talk to you about the where we are with businesses redeeming their coupons. So I'm going to share my screen real quick, and I'm just going to run you through real quick what we have on the website and tell you about how many businesses have signed up, et cetera. Okay. Can you guys all see that?
It just shows that you started screen sharing, but it's still, there you go. Yes, we can see the Moab City website.
Awesome. So on the main page of the city website, we have a link at the very top for Buy Local Bucks, which people can click on, and that will take them to the page. And because my internet probably is going to be a little slow from here at home, it might take a second, but and so on the Buy Local Bucks page, we have information for residents and also information for businesses who would like to connect, who would like to sign up. Sorry. Can you guys see all this?
No, we're just still on the welcome main page.
Okay, hang on.
Website.
let me see what's happening here.
Joel, could you?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yep.
If Lisa wants to unshare, I can share mine right now.
Yeah, Lisa, why don't we
Okay.
have,
Yeah.
why don't we see a man
Joel,
about
share it.
to end with?
Okay. That works. Let me unshare. Okay. Take it away, Joel.
It's still telling me you're sharing. Oh, there it goes. Okay, let me try again. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have information for residents and information for businesses who'd like to sign up. Currently, we have 98 businesses who have signed up to join. And as you scroll down, if you would, Joel, there's information, and we actually have a thermometer here that is charting as frequently as possible how much of the local bucks have been spent. And as of today, we have spent just over, well, almost $40,000. So 38% of the $100,000 that we set aside has been redeemed by local businesses. So again, we encourage people to spend their bucks early, because once we reach 100%, then we're out of money, and that's the end of the program at this point. On the right here, you'll see a complete list of all the businesses who have signed up and are participating. So pretty much everything that anybody would need to know about the program and how it works is included here on the website. They can also email buylocalbucks@moabcity.org, or they can email me at communication@moabcity.org if they have questions. Or if someone didn't receive their coupons, we are keeping a list of those, and we do have extras that we had printed for that very purpose, so we can provide them to people if they contact us and let us know and give us their address and all that information, so that we can make arrangements to get a coupon, a postcard with coupons to them. And that's it for me.
I guess that
Unless,
means
of course, you have questions.
Summer, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen also, just so you can see our lovely spreadsheet. Okay, can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so what this is, the form that Lisa created for businesses to sign up. These are all the businesses that have signed up. And as they've come in, we kind of made a mark. So 1/6 was the last time we had someone sign up, but then we've transferred them over to a business redemption page. This is the list of businesses. Since the 4th was the first day we were back from our holiday break, that's why it starts on the 4th. So those coupons that were redeemed on the 4th are just tallied up by the businesses, and then the running totals. And I've only got this out through January for right now, but this is where we're keeping track of which businesses turn them in and how much we've spent, or how much has been spent so far. So that is the information that Lisa is using to fill the thermometer. And then we also just have this page, and we're just double checking. We have the list of addresses of all the properties that were sent the Buy Local Bucks coupons. And as you can see, if they've redeemed them, we're just checking them off so that we can keep track of making sure that there aren't duplicates that somehow went out there or anything along those lines. But basically, the addresses are in here. There are no names tied to it, but you can see that some people have redeemed 1, some people have redeemed 2, and some people have redeemed all 3. So as we're getting those, we're just keeping track of that also. And then this is just a list of folks that they haven't received their card or they had a weird address. So we're keeping that there. I don't want to keep it up on the screen for too long because it does have people's addresses on it. So anyway, that's what we're using to keep track of it.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that system with us. Questions, Council?
You going to say anything about the grant program for organizations?
I could speak to that briefly, Caitlin, if you like. Caitlin, I mean, so we are advertising that this week. The deadline is going to be January 29th. And then we have a committee of staff that will meet on February 2nd to go through the applications that we receive. And there actually is a web page for that that's up and running now too. I don't know if Joe wants to try to share that on his page or not, or on his computer or not. But that was up as of last Thursday, so that people could go there for information if they saw there was a story in last week's paper, and because we said on our press release, and then we also have ads this week coming out with more information about it. So,
and we've been getting a lot of questions and calls about that from residents.
Okay. And so the program itself is called the City of Moab Grant Program 2021, because it is a one-time program, and not to be confused with community contributions. So, you know, as I said, that information is on the website. And again, anybody can email me at communication@moabcity.org if they have questions about it. And but there's also an application form that's on the website there. For both nonprofits and also for government entities who qualify under the guidelines that were created. So pretty much it's a one-stop shop there. Everything's there for them if they need it.
Lisa, question for you.
Yes, Mike.
I did get a call from a potential requester, and I told them that that while it was not community contributions, it's truly a one-shot deal. I implied that it was, you know, the committee that makes the decisions about where to spend the money might well use the same sorts of rules and guidelines that we do for community contributions. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. In fact, most of the questions that are asked on the application form, I mean, it's slightly different for the government entities because they're not included in community contributions, but pretty much it's the same questions, and it's just it's a different form because we used a Google form this time. But yeah, it's basically the same criterion. So.
And so I just shared my screen, and that's under your government on our webpage, and it's right there, City of Moab Grant Program. And it has all that information there, Mike, and it also has the City of Moab Grant Program 2021 guidelines right there. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Summer.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
And then Clint is going to talk to you guys a little bit about finance and some of that fun stuff.
Super fun. So just going to give you a little bit of an update, what's going on kind of in my world. I've been working on the institutional water rates. I need to send you guys some stuff that you guys can look over so that next meeting, maybe we're all on the same page with everything. I'll try to get that out by tomorrow. I'm also working on the water bond, and hopefully we can get everything in line. I need to work with Chuck a little bit more where we can present that next meeting. I also I've been working on the budget opening. We're going to have to open that up, and hopefully in either the next meeting or the following meeting with that as well. So you're going to see a lot of me in the next month or so, because we're looking at doing a slight revision to the master fee schedule as well. So, but with tonight, I'm going to just do a quick mid-year update on the budget. I can share my screen. All right, let's see. From the beginning. Which one is it showing? Is it showing the full page one?
It started with a full page. Now it's a split screen showing this next slide.
We good now?
That's good.
All right. Okay, so first slide, and I'll be quick here, this is just the general fund mid-year update. On the left, we have our revenue. So far for the year, we're about almost $1.5 million over budget, or you could say we've brought in more revenue than we budgeted for the year. A good portion of that, though, is our CARES funding. As you can see in the intergovernmental revenue line there, the $1.2 million. The rest of it, I mean, our sales tax it's basically, if I look at my sales tax or our sales tax, August, we came in, and these are comparable. This is different. If we look at budget or last year or comparative to what we did last year, every month has got better comparative to the year prior. So our sales tax, I mean, we're headed in the right direction. December was 125% of December last year, and January's numbers aren't in here, but I did get preliminary for January, and it's looking between 125 and 130% of January of last year. So town's still busy. But back to the budget, you can see if you take the CARES funding out, we're still about $400,000 in the black on revenue for the year for just the general fund. If I flip over to expenses were about $1 million under budget, and most of that is, I mean, everything that we put into place back in the spring of this last year with spending freeze and some of the other adjustments that we made. And you can see that the general fund at this point it's in pretty good shape comparative to where we probably thought it would have been 6 months ago, and being in the middle of the pandemic. Any questions on the general fund? All right, I'm just going to jump over the rec fund. We've got some intergovernmental revenue that we haven't received yet, and that should be coming in here, at least a portion of it here pretty quickly. Recreation, yeah, I mean, we haven't really done a whole lot of rec this first half of this year. MRAC, all of these, you just know they're all kind of COVID related. The Mark has done a great job getting some grants, and their revenue almost is on budget. So with that, revenue wise, yeah, we're about $300,000 from budget. Now you can flip that over to the expenses side, and they've done a great job of keeping costs down. And at the rec, the MREC and the Mark, and basically between our expenses being under budget and our loss of revenue, they're almost a wash. So I'd say good job to everyone of doing what we can and pinching our pennies. And last thing I want to present on mid-year here is our water and our sewer funds. So our water fund, if you guys recall, we did a water rate adjustment in right around the middle of July. That came into effect in August, and our revenue, you can see it's up almost $500,000 over what we budgeted. I mean, it made a big difference, and we needed to do that so we could get our water bond in place and get a lot of work done this year, 2021. And the revenue's great, and our expenses have really, Levi and those guys have done a great job of keeping their expenses in check over there. So the water fund's in great shape, and I can say the same thing for the sewer. It's not as drastic, but I mean, we're under budget, and our revenue has really come in pretty good on the sewer fund as well. All in all, I think both funds are healthier than they were at this point last year or the year before. And you'll see a lot more of this in detail when we do the budget opening, and we'll be going down through this line by line.
So Clint, you're not in any danger of having too much money in the water?
That's a good question. That's something that I'll probably need to work out with our audit group a little bit. At this point, no, but it could, we might have a little bit of too much of a good thing at this point, and that's something that I need to keep my eye on.
Thank you.
And just a reminder, because of our efficiency and infrastructure projects, you know, the money we raise in water and sewer, we can always spend in water and sewer doing projects, building infrastructure. So I don't know that we can have too much. We just got to stay on top of it and make sure we have projects going.
Yep. So, but you will see a lot of me in the coming months. I apologize in advance.
The interesting thing that as we're working through this, Clint and I and Danny have a budget meeting tomorrow for 2 hours. We've been meeting, working on this stuff. The interesting thing we're finding with COVID is because of our fiscal year being set up July 1 through June 30 and COVID starting in March, it's kind of splitting the loss across 2 different years. And so it's making, we had such a good year last fiscal year, July through February, and then you have March through June, it was a problem going into that lump, and it's being offset by them first 8 months. And then you had basically July and August, which were still rough in this budget year before everything started recovering, and those 2 months are being offset by how great things have been the last 4 months. So the fiscal year is really becoming this blessing in disguise as we're working through this, because it's taking the loss, splitting it in 2 different directions and offsetting it by the beginning of last year, which was really good, and the end of COVID, or the beginning of this year, which was really good. So it's going to be interesting as we work through our budget, how that's actually going to play out and how we can move those into their actual categories. Because up until now, we've been tracking everything as a COVID year, which isn't a thing budget-wise, but we've just been tracking it March through our losses, and we've been keeping tabs of it as a whole. And so, which is great, that's helped us keep track of everything and know what we needed to do in order to respond to the actual number we had in the loss. But now that we're breaking it out into these 2 separate years as the months add up, it's letting us put basically 60% of the loss in one year and 40% of the loss in the other year. And the offset from those 2 years is covering it quite well, actually. So like Clint said, over the next meeting or 2, we're going to have just a ton of information coming your way on all of that.
It has made things a little challenging as I begin to get numbers together for starting to put a budget together for next year as well. So with it all being spread between the 2 years and putting data and looking at it, yeah, it's been interesting.
The irony is, because the heaviest hit months were March, April, and May, which were technically in last fiscal year, that's where the majority of the loss is. And so this year, the smaller loss months under COVID were July and August, which go into this fiscal year. And the September through December have just been outrageous as far as revenue. And so it's been completely outpaced because they were the 2 smallest of the loss months, offset by some of our biggest months we've ever had in our history of sales tax, regardless. So last year's, we're going to have to do a budget amendment for everything we're getting out of this for last year. And actually this year's looking like it's going to be fine. The irony is the COVID loss is going to show up in the last fiscal budget, not this fiscal budget.
Well, thank you, Clint, for the presentation. Thank you again and again to staff for being frugal. I mean, I think the MARC numbers really reflect kind of what we're seeing across all departments, where you cut what you can. It's always hard with, when you have a loss of revenue, sometimes you can't always cut expenses to match that revenue loss, but staff continues to do an amazing job. So thank you to staff.
And it's funny that you say that, Mayor. The MARC has basically 0 revenue this year with holding 0 events, and they've done such a great job at writing grants and taking advantage of the grant program. Their revenue is at 99% of pre-COVID.
Yeah.
They completely offset their losses through the grant programs.
They've done a great job.
And budgeting is weird for the city. So we've got like the calendar year, we've got our fiscal year that starts July, and then we've got the COVID calendar year, which is going to be the mid-March to mid-March. So maybe, mid-March we'll know really what the calendar is, huh?
I've got so many different Excel files to compare things to.
And then we don't get the revenue for the month until 2 months later. So we talk about December revenue and we always have to say, all right, are we talking October or are we talking actual December? So
And everything we're getting from the feds and the states say COVID started basically March 1, 2020. And so we have to include those numbers in everything we're doing as a part of our COVID count. But the reality is, like you just said, is March is 2 months before. So we have no loss for that March, even though technically it's a COVID month. So that helps as well in the COVID calendar. So, all right, that said, moving on, I'm going to let Levi talk to you guys real quick and Chuck will be real quick and we'll be done with this.
Hello, everyone. First off, we had several employees from each department work through the holidays. We had heating issues, a couple of the city buildings. We had 2 snowstorms, so we had plows out on both occasions. We had a couple of service leaks. We were checking the wells. And then we still had personnel working in city buildings, so facilities had to come in and do maintenance there. Due to the cold weather, we've had 7 total, only 7 water meter freeze up so far. We had 1 fire hydrant leak. Same crews, the water department's been working with Williams on the widening project, moving a couple of service lines. We're getting really, really close to finishing that as far as water infrastructure goes. Still working with Slick Rock Campground, trying to get their system online. The water lines tested. Streets crews, been helping Kelly while he was out with his shoulder. He's back now on light duty. They were helping out servicing police department vehicles, maintenance and repairs. They been diligently hanging those OHV signs. They're about 80% complete there. Got all the main artery streets. I think 300 south, going south, Cane Creek, going south. That's the areas that are left to do. Facilities, like I said, been busy cleaning. Had a couple guys from each department. We had a power pole issue on Walnut Lane. It broke at the base, and so we had to go over there, and Kelly and Chet helped secure it so it didn't fall over. And then Rocky Mountain Power donated a power pole to us, and we had crews set that power pole and change over power to 2 trailers today. We had several people throughout the departments work on that. That's about it. Everybody's been pretty busy.
Thanks so much for doing such a great job, you and your crew plowing.
Yeah, it was all them. They had a couple guys work well over 8 hours during those holiday periods each day doing that. They pulled the weight of others that were on vacation out of town, so they enjoyed it. It was fun. We're due to the cold temperatures. We're still fighting some of those shady areas with ice. They're over there daily still trying to get rid of ice. So yeah, they're doing a really, really good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Levi. Any questions for Levi? Have a good night. Good to see you.
Thank you, guys.
Happy New Year.
And lastly is Chuck.
Evening, everyone. Just give you an update on some of the projects that we're involved with that you're aware of. On the 191 widening, paving is done until spring. Anyone who's driven there knows that there's now 2 lanes open. And one thing I wanted to say in the interest of safety for the public listening, even though those through lanes are wide, they're still just one way. I've seen people passing on the right, passing on the left, but the reason they've done that is they still have to do some work out in the middle over the next couple of months. But the plan is that hopefully in March, temperatures will be back. The contractor can get in there and get the paving done, that final lift up. In the meantime, concrete and storm drain work is continuing. As weather allows, there's sidewalk, shared use path will go on the east side, and then the west side has the sidewalk. So the project's moving forward, even though it might look like it's slowed down, it has, because the paving is done for now, because of weather. USU campus progress continues. They've basically got the foundations, they're substantially in, still looking at a December 21st completion date. Aggie Boulevard Phase 2 is under construction for the water line, part of which will be serving the campus. The thing I mentioned there is that last time I told you they were hoping to be done in January. It looks like it's going to be more like February because they've run into some rock. But one thing I would also, for members of the public listening, is there's a lot of equipment working there, and we've got the road closed at both ends. So people should really stay out of there. Not the vehicles really have a hard time going in there, but there's people still walking in there and riding bikes in there, and it's just not safe. When we have roads closed and there's work zones, the public could really help everyone by just staying out of those work zones, because the work will get completed and that road will be opened up again relatively soon, we hope. Lines back construction continues. If you've been out there, you've noticed that the booster station down across from the recycling center the building is starting to come together now. They're pouring the floors. Same way with the sewer lift station, which is, you can see up top across from the landfill, next to the landfill. Transportation plan, we're hoping, I haven't seen the latest draft, the final draft, if you will, but what I understand is we should hope to have that by January 30th for an opportunity to review that. Well, number 12, yeah, it's exciting. Clint's really working on that bond, and we hope to have that coming soon. We received our permit to drill, and quickly, I owe you a council an email. I promised you one at the work session, but we've reached agreement between USGS and the Department of Water Resources, and if the city chooses to participate in a three-way partnership cost sharing to really do some good data collection when that well is going in. And right now we're hoping, bond permitting and everything, that that well construction will happen in March. Pool, we've been working for the pool. I think I've mentioned this before, but you know how we've had trouble with the walls peeling in the areas of the pool? Well, we worked with Public Works and facilities and trying to have an architect on board trying to help us figure out how to fix that. And they did some analysis, and I'm expecting a report within the next 2 weeks. And I'll be going to Joel, and then I'm sure we'll be going to council with a follow-up on that. And then the last thing I was going to report on is that the Bike Skills Park, we did the in-house design of the bathroom and the utilities, and the bathroom's ordered, and it will be delivered in March sometime. We can't get a better date than that because everything's squirrely with COVID in terms of deliveries. But once it comes in, it should be a matter of days. So by the end of March, we're hopeful that the bathroom will be in place and viable. And that's all I had for now, unless there's any questions.
Chuck, is that bathroom going to be a year-round bathroom, like open in the winter?
It's going to be up to the Parks Department. It's capable of being open in the winter. It's going to be the exact same bathroom that's at Anonymous Park. And my understanding is that Parks closed it for a while, but I could have that wrong because we wanted to go in there to look at something to compare it for this one. But it has the ability to be open year-round. I think it's just a management issue of how it's managed.
Thank you. And thanks for those updates. Any questions for Joel or Cole? Chuck?
I've been called worse.
You've been very busy. Thank you so much for managing all of those big projects.
You're welcome.
Much appreciated. Happy New Year. See you later. Okay. Joel, and that's it, correct? Yep.
That is it.
Okay. Well, then we are going to move right along from administrative reports to mayor and council reports. I guess I'm up. Okay. Happy New Year, everyone. Here's to the new year and a new year full of students of the month that I get to celebrate all year long. But I've been continuing to do that elementary and middle school. In fact, I get to celebrate 2 middle schoolers tomorrow. I have, as you know, been participating on the Grand County Economic Development Board. We did approve grants. If you are aware, every year the GoEd Office of Rural Development grants out different money to different organizations doing different things. Last year they consolidated that. The legislature just consolidated that so that every county would get $200,000, and then they bumped it down to $100,000 due to COVID for us and for others. And so every county has a board that distributes that money. That board met, and we did in fact distribute those funds. So if you've got questions about who got that money, it's meant to be a business grant starter and grower, expander of business. Those grants were distributed. I attended a Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments meeting. Nothing really to report there. League of Cities and Towns meetings and LPC. I'm going to come back to LPC in a second. Serving on the Housing Affordability Rural Subcommittee. What's great is that I am, rural's getting a lot of attention this legislative session, and our governor in particular in his budget. My phone's kind of blowing up from different people saying, yeah, we've got, rural money coming, hopefully. So it's very exciting what's happening for both housing, but also rural. I've just been attending lots of meetings about ATVs and OHVs and UTVs. Back to LPC and legislative session. A few things. There is a daily briefing call that the League of Cities and Towns provides. And so I will share in an email with everybody the details if you'd like to participate in those daily calls. Reminder that the League has a whole bucket of issues that they are watching. And in that email to all of you, I will also include what we voted on at the LPC of the bills that the League is tracking, what their position is. And you can ask me or Ronnie or Joel, I think you were there too, details about any of that legislation. Not all League of Cities and Towns bills that they're following are applicable to Moab City, but some of them are relevant, and so that's where we are with that. But I did want to say later on our agenda, we've got our boards and commissions, and so I do want to just make sure and touch base about those of us serving on LPC, Ronnie has mentioned, and I agree, and we kind of talked about doing this with OHV legislation tracking, but an idea of a legislative committee made up of 2 council members, myself, and some staff to more formally track legislation. So later when we're talking about boards, we can talk about that. And that's it for me. So, Ronnie, you are muted. Number 1 phrase of 2020.
Keeps you all from hearing me talk to myself. We didn't have an actual EMS meeting, but there were some emails that came across during this holiday period. So just a few things to share. Sadly, we had to say goodbye to Dr. Hawks, who went off to Japan, but he is happily being replaced by Jim Webster, who many of you know from school district and search and rescue. And December 2020 was the busiest December so far. And kind of interesting, 70 patient encounters between December 15th and 30th. And I think when I got an update from them on December 31st, in the last 48 hours, they'd done 4 calls out to Arches, several of them out to Devil's Garden, so all the way out. Good news, just in the COVID world, was that I got an email, I can't remember now if it was like, anyway, around the end of December, that EMS staff was getting vaccines. So that's great. I think when I heard from them on the 31st, 85% of them had gotten it, and it was open to all of them. And the other cool thing, just because I know a lot of us interface with wildland firefighters in the community, I know they've been getting it too. So if you know anybody on fire who hasn't gotten it yet, have them contact the health department. And then just about LPC, yeah, I was going to say to the mayor, we should coordinate, because I started typing up some notes too. And just and Joel had mentioned too, there are some cool tools out there, and it does seem like, you know, 4 of us can vote, and so that includes, in our case, 4, because the mayor is a board member. So yeah, good to revisit that, but it does sound like there are going to be some cool texting tools to update all of us that we can respond to in live time. So I think that'll help us. But one of the just really big messages in the Legislative Policy Committee meeting yesterday was that more than ever under COVID, you know, we don't want legislators to be in a cocoon. So it's very, very important that they hear from us, because they won't be getting many in-person visits. So it is more important than ever to find out, you know, if they prefer texts or calls or what, and just to be in regular contact with them, just to build those relationships. I don't know that I need to take your time now to mention some of those specific bills, but there are some interesting ones. They're having to do with some preemption issues. The league was warning us there are some scary things we'd rather not be having to deal with, and some of them have been there before and they're coming back. But you know, we've got some things like electronic billboards and some firearm preemptions, which seem redundant because they're already preemptions, is the way I understood it when it was explained. And then also an interesting one about utility permitting amendments, which seems to, I'll just read this briefly, because I think with some of our sustainability and climate work, it'll be interesting to some of you. It basically reads, a municipality may not enact an ordinance, resolution, or policy that prohibits or has the effect of prohibiting the connection or reconnection of a utility service to a customer based on the type or source of energy to be delivered to the customer. So apparently this lawmaker, Representative Handy, is concerned, I guess, watching some things around in other parts of the county, of the country, where some people, I'm only guessing from climate work, are starting to decide, you know, maybe we're in a position where we have enough options where we don't want to use energy from a certain energy source. We know in some big cities, they're looking at reducing, say, natural gas use in the interest of electricity because of carbon. So anyway, that's probably one to watch too. And there was one other one here, but anyway, some having to do with just not having to get inspections of property. And I think there's another one about ADUs that some of you are aware of. So anyway, those were some of the top ones. I think that was it for me otherwise. Thanks.
Thank you, Ronnie. Mike, you're up.
I gave the same presentation to the county planning commission, the county planning commission, that I gave to you guys a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of interesting questions. They're just as intrigued about the whole thing as we were. So that's good. Mark Stilson, the Southeast Utah water engineer, has been meeting with the Linda Whittam, and particularly the who runs the Nature Conservancy's wetlands area down the Matheson wetlands and down there, and they're talking about a research program involving the Utah Geologic Society, in which they're trying to get a better idea really of how much water is in the wetlands. That involves the river, it involves springs from with Lynn Canyon water that flows into the lower valley, valley fill water that comes down all the way down the valley, and so on. And so Mark keeps letting me know that it should be really nice if the city could contribute some funding. I've got a feeling it'll be another, hopefully a 3-way cost share, something on that order, so it wouldn't be too expensive. But I have been telling people, as you know, that the water is going to get more expensive because it's getting more complicated. So you guys might as well get used to these sorts of requests. So hopefully it won't be a big sum of money, but it would be good. They're going to let us know, Emily, before too long, Clint, about hand us a real plan, a budget, have real numbers on it. Until then, we don't have to worry about anything. Pickleball requests from folks who've gotten excited about a possible offer from the Grand County School District to let them lease some land just west of the tennis courts, as I understand it. And I've heard from several people now, including one guy, old friend of mine, who has been charged with finding funding for it. And it's become clear they don't really know what's going on yet and won't for a while, haven't decided what they want to do. So I wouldn't, Carly, I kind of pinged her, but Carly, and thank you for pointing me to Patrick Trim, but I wouldn't get too excited about all this because I don't think they really know what they want to do yet, but we'll find out.
It sounds like a perfect thing to spend tax funding on. Land.
Yeah, there you go. And finally, on the subject of billboards, Ronnie, thank you for pointing me to it. I did write my own personal plea, please don't do this, to Moab, and copied Carl Albrecht and our senator, what's his name? Oh, what's his name? Forgive me, but Carl, thank you. Yes, and Carl did write back, and encouragingly, he said, I was so happy to hear this. You know how Carl is. And he didn't particularly like electronic billboards either. And I pointed out how Amarillo, Texas, where I come from, is lined with very bright, obnoxious signs when I go into town to visit my folks and so on. And we didn't really want that. Just doesn't really fit into Moab. So if Carl sympathizes with that, there's still hope, okay? That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Who's next? Tani.
I actually really took a hiatus over the holidays. The only thing that I have done is on last Friday, I had an interview with Cassidy Jones, who's working with the Friends of Arches and Canyonlands. And she interviewed me for about an hour about what kinds of challenges Moab had due to visitation, what opportunities there were to for people to create businesses based on our fortunes or misfortunes. And what I saw as our struggles and what I saw as our strengths, and the type of visitors that we wanted to attract. And it was kind of a wide-ranging interview, but it was interesting. She told me that she would send me a summary when she got it completed. She's working on, I believe, some graduate work at the U, so that's what it entailed. And I think other than that, that's all for me.
Okay, thanks, Tani. Karen.
So we had a chamber meeting on December 23rd. Justin Lee from Senator Mike Lee's office joined us for our meeting, and he gave us highlights of the new stimulus bill that was being proposed. Just a heads up to all small business and nonprofits that the PPP 2.0 opens tomorrow. There's more funding for small businesses, nonprofits, and there's quite a bit more funding for live venues, which wasn't included in the first round of funding. It is first come, first serve. So if it is anything like the first round of funding, I mean, it went within hours. So anybody who's interested can reach information on coronavirus.utah.gov/business. And so it would be available. This funding is available if the second draw of PPP only if businesses or sole proprietors or independent contractors use their first round of money. If they spend everything, and then they can show a loss of 25%. We had an airport board meeting. Our new director, Andy, and the county attorney have been working very hard with the board to get new rules and regulations and minimum standards, lease agreements for the airport. And at our last meeting, we finally, it's been months, and we finally agreed to move the new lease agreements and standards forward to the county commission for approval. There's a new flight schedule to Denver for January, and it's once a day. It arrives from Denver at 3:15 and it departs at 3:45. And then our end of the year totals at the airport, some good news: fuel sales were up. Employments, obviously it was down. It actually, the numbers came down to 51% compared to 2019. The employments were at 9,930 compared to over 20,000 the previous year, which is a bummer, but expected with COVID. Yet some of the businesses up at the airport had their busiest years ever. And one of the most busy was the skydive Moab. So good news for them. And that was it.
Thanks, Karen. And Kaylin.
I attended a housing task force meeting. We went over 2021 priorities, but we extended to continue the discussion because we didn't necessarily have all of our peoples there. And it seems like the membership and engagement in that body is somewhat cyclical. So one thing that we did talk about was seeing if perhaps a planning commissioner or two from the city and the county might be interested in being involved, since land use does play such a role in housing. So I could reach out to them, or if it was more appropriate for someone else to, that'd be fine with me. But let me know at some point. Solid waste had a board meeting. It was the end of the year. We're on a calendar budget year, so it was mainly about the budget. Lots of numbers. But we did do a very cooperative Christmas tree collection, and they'll be chipped and maybe composted. So thanks to the city and Monument for their role in that. And I attended a travel council meeting, and much of the meeting was spent talking to Kelly Bricker, a professor at U of U, who specializes in sustainable tourism. So seems like we're building momentum for even more sustainability focus in that body. So that's good. That's what I've got.
Okay, thank you, Kaylin. Where are we? We are now at the approval of minutes. So on our agenda, we have minutes from December 8th, minutes from December 16th, and minutes from December 18th. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from October 8th, 16th, and 18th.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ronnie. Any updates or revisions to share?
Yeah, was the motion for October or December?
Oh, did I say October?
Did you say October?
I think I just said the 8th.
October, but that's okay.
Oh,
It was December.
Well, how about December 8th?
Oh, great.
18th.
Thank you.
At least somebody caught that. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
I suppose for rules of order, Ronnie, are you still fine with that?
I'm still fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so corrections, sorry.
Oh, I just sent a few to Summer. I saw that Mike had a few. Yeah.
Okay.
Made those corrections.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I will roll call. I will ask for a roll call vote. Tawny.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
Ronnie.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. We are now on to presentation. Unfortunately, Grand County School District had to cancel, but they do hope to present at the next meeting. And so we will not be receiving a presentation for tonight. Let's see. So we are now in proclamations. We do have one proclamation tonight, and I'll just pull it up and read it. So this is a proclamation for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. made significant and long-lasting contributions to the social and economic progress within our nation through the movement toward racial equality and civil rights for all people, no matter their race, color, creed, or occupation, including the push to desegregate public and private institutions and to provide fair rights and appropriate labor laws. And whereas through peaceful protests and nonviolent public demonstrations, Dr. King was a catalyst for change in how African Americans are treated, and stated that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And whereas to commemorate the life and legacy of Dr. King on November 2nd, 1983, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill to declare Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a federal holiday to be observed annually on the third Monday of January to represent Dr. King's birthday. And whereas Moab City recognizes and honors the contributions made by Dr. King and pledges to promote universal respect for and observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day and the civil rights guaranteed to all residents throughout Moab and our nation. And whereas as we honor Dr. King this month, which would have been Dr. King's 92nd birthday, it is appropriate for us to recognize and pay tribute to his inclusive civil rights work for all communities. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Emily Niehaus, Mayor of the City of Moab, do hereby join with community members in proclaiming Monday, January 18, 2021 as Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and urge community and faith leaders, civil rights advocates, educators, public officials, and all people of Moab City to recognize and remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his dream for a greater America. Particularly poignant, I believe. Okay, and now we are on to old business. 9.1. The discussion of changes to the land use provisions of the Moab Municipal Code relating to all-terrain vehicles. This is a discussion item only. And Nora, thank you for joining us tonight.
Hey everybody, Happy New Year. So I know that there has been a lot of discussion on UTVs and strategies and approaches, and counties talking about a survey. There's just lots of stuff going on around ATVs and UTVs. And this discussion is not intended to be all-inclusive at all. This discussion is just for you guys to tell me what you want me to be working on. So I'm going to keep it at that level and ask some really specific questions at the end, and hopefully get some direction so that I know where to go from here. And Lori is going to chime in because some of this is legal stuff. I won't say mumbo jumbo, but you know, legal stuff. So anyway, so let me go ahead and I am going to share my screen and pull up a little PowerPoint presentation. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that for some reason, I have some instability in my internet connection, even though I can't figure out what it is, and I've been trying. So if I cut out, I'll be back probably in a word or two. So I apologize in advance for that if it happens. Okay, so. Okay. Wow. So this is briefly what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to discuss briefly just the kind of land use portion of the joint resolution that was approved by the County Commission and the City Council about the land use pieces of it so that we can figure out what direction to go. I'm going to talk briefly about zoning ordinances like we did with overnight accommodations and pending ordinance regulations or doctrine according to, which is, it's 180 days, but it's kind of for, so I'll just go over those briefly. I don't want to dwell on it, but I do want to understand what your intent is as we move forward. Then I'm going to discuss briefly, I know that, you know, that we can move forward with fairly quickly if you want me to do that. And then the specific questions. So this is language. Okay, this is language from the resolution. So this is the title, part of the title of the resolution, to formally initiate proceedings to amend the Graham County Land Use Code and the Moab Municipal Code to amend those relevant portions permitting vehicle sales, rentals, or leasing, commercial outdoor recreation uses, and outfitter guide and services and facilities. And then it goes on to clarify in the ordinance itself is to formally initiate proceedings to amend the Grant County Land Use Code and the Moab Municipal Code to amend those relevant portions permitting all-terrain vehicle sales, rentals, or leasing, and outfitter guide services and facilities. And then it goes on to include the sections that need amending. So that's what we're going to talk about. What does that mean? Talk a little bit about this temporary zoning ordinance versus the pending ordinance provisions. I think I've created more confusion than I helped in my discussion of those in the staff report, but let me try to go through those. So the temporary ordinance is a temporary zoning ordinance is done for emergency purposes. And I sent you a link to some information from the it, but most of you are pretty familiar with it because it's what we did with the overnight accommodations. We actually put a 6-month moratorium in place, adopted an ordinance which started the 180-day period. Within that 180-day period, then the goal is to come up with regulations. So that's that approach. And then the second part is this pending ordinance doctrine, which is a different section of the code. And it's one of there are provisions in the state code, which I sent a link to all of you to this section. And it basically says that the code language itself is kind of confusing and not very definitive. But this particular avenue to do things is also really the Ombudsman's office has given for recent advisory opinions on when this makes sense and when it doesn't, and when it's legal and when it's not. And basically, the short story is if there's something that, if you want to initiate a zoning change, and you have a procedure set up in your code to initiate that change. So you have something that says, this is the pending ordinance regulations for Moab. Once a planning commission meeting is held to discuss this item, it's formally considered initiated, or some definition. And lots of different cities do different things. Most cities in Utah don't do anything. So we're kind of stuck in this legal limbo a little bit, and we don't have anything in our code that currently addresses this. So while it mentioned the 180 days, and it says initiate, does that then, by use of that section of the code, say that we won't receive new applications for 180 days? I don't know if that option is available to us according to state law, but I do know that if you wanted to do a separate temporary zoning ordinance, we certainly could proceed that way. If we decide to go the other way and decide it's initiation, then we'll have to talk about what is being initiated, because you have to determine what the scope of the ordinance is. So in order for that to be invoked, we have to decide what code changes we're proposing to make. So we need a little bit of more information on the direction you want to go, which is why we're talking tonight. So definitions and land use is permitted. This is something that we need to do whether or not we're really talking about making changes to our land use code. Right now we need to include the definitions of the types of ATVs, type 1, type 2, and type 3 in our code to make sure it's consistent with the state code. So we need to modify our definitions. We also have lots of permitted uses and lots of different zones. And many of them say really different things that mean the same thing. Like some places it talks about guide services, other places it talks about rental, leasing. The language is not consistent with the permitted uses in each zone. And most of those permitted uses are not defined in our definitions. So we need to figure out what definitions we want to land on for permitted uses. We're not deciding zones that we want to put them in. We're just cleaning up to make sure that the definitions and our allowable land uses or permitted uses are consistent with each other, so that we don't have this confusion about, well, this says I can do this, but there's no definition for it. So what does that mean? So we have an ongoing discussion about this, but certainly it needs to have these land use changes. And then do you want to look at the Utah state definitions, or are you all pretty familiar with those? Yes, no?
Oh, are you talking about just the ones for type 1, 2, and 3 ATVs? Or I'm familiar with the types, but I don't know if the state has definitions for guides or outfitters. That's just me.
They don't. So anyway, so I won't show those. So I have a couple questions for you. According to the resolution, what I was thinking was that what you were asking was for us to prohibit new ATV related services, however we define those, in all zones. That's sort of what I thought was intended, but I'm not sure. So that's why I'm coming to you. And do you want that to be like a temporary regulation saying we're just prohibiting them for the short term until we come up with, something else? Or do you want that just to be a temporary situation, or do you want it to be permanent that we prohibit these? And then if we decide to prohibit them, new ATV related services, then they would become non-conforming uses. And I wanted you to make sure you understand that non-conforming uses are very heavily regulated, and it allows for little expansion, like no expansion, and not a lot in terms of improvements. So it kind of it would tie the hands of our existing providers in ATV services as to what they can do to improve their business. So it's a little tricky because it's pretty significant and severe. So, was it the city council's intent to do some temporary regulations to give us 180 days to work on code changes? So do you want to do another temporary zoning ordinance that is allowed because it's an emergency for the health, safety, welfare of the citizens of Moab? So that's one question. Would a removal from permitted uses in all zones, is that a short-term strategy or a long-term strategy? And should staff move forward with either of the above, but should staff move forward with the definition and land use permitted uses to be internally consistent? So we can start working on those definitions and land use types. So what I'm asking is, and then there are also some business license considerations that we need to talk about. I don't do business licenses, but this is just through my experience in talking with Marcy about some questions that we've had. Specifically, right now on our business licenses, they are yet different categories than what our land use types are permitted. So, you know, it's a whole different, yet again, a different set of definitions. And right now we do not ask them the number of vehicles they have or hours of operation or really anything. All we do is just, it's a business license and are they in the right zoning? And so can we move forward? So how do we handle it when someone calls us and said they have an existing business, but they want to add a couple of vehicles to their fleet for the spring? How do we address that question? And is it our intent to restrict street type vehicles that are not modified? So like non-modified Jeeps or other kinds of four-wheel drive sort of passenger type cars and vehicles, and regular old four-wheel drive trucks. Is it our intent to try to regulate those, or is it just ATVs as listed in the state definitions, which includes modified Jeeps, but not, you know, normal street legal Jeeps? So those are the questions I put before you. So
would it be okay, since I think you're about to take us through those questions?
Yes.
Could we unshare the screen just so that you can see us? Because what I think is if you straw poll us as you go through the questions, and then there could be some, you know, questions pertaining to one question or the other, that might be the easiest way to go through that. What do you think?
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
Is it the city council's intent would you prefer to enter into a temporary emergency zoning ordinance like we did with the overnight accommodations? Or do we want to initiate the changes and then invoke the pending ordinance doctrine, if you will? But one is sort of faster and more direct, and may carry less risk, sort of less uncertainty than looking at the section on pending ordinances. So that's the first question. How many city council members want to move forward and do, in addition to the resolution, want to do a temporary zoning ordinance prohibiting new applications from being filed for the ATV services? Or are you happy with what's there today?
Well, Nora, I will just say that if the question is, do I want to do temporary versus beginning negotiation of final regulations right now, I don't think we're ready for the latter. And I would vote for temporary land use ordinances only because it would give us 6 months roughly to figure out what it is we really want to do. That's my rationale.
So who else wanted to go ahead and initiate a temporary land use ordinance?
I would like to do a temporary land use regulation. I thought that we had done the soft version of that in October. So I thank you for clarifying it to me. I understand there's ambiguity, but I'd like the unambiguous and quick version.
The one that's most clear. Others, would you rather just move forward with direction, and then once specific provisions are proposed, then we would invoke the pending ordinance doctrine.
Nora, may I ask, you said, I'm sorry if it's confused, because I'm confused. You said something was risky. What, I mean, I'm afraid we're bordering on like overreach on private property rights.
Well,
right?
that kind of has, so let me try to explain the section of the code, of the state code that says that that an applicant, it's a section that talks about when an application is vested. And it says an application, you know, once they turn it in, they're subject to the rules that are in effect at the time the application is submitted. And then it goes on to talk about other provisions, including once a land use change is initiated, then the city can let people know that for the next 180 days that we will not be processing any new applications for ATV type services. And the direction that the ombudsman has given depends on specific circumstances. And this is something that we'll probably want to look at in the future to see if we want to modify our code to actually codify that process. So the code would say the city defines pending ordinance as this, and this defines when a project is initiated. But it's really the kind of the case law and the opinions that get into the specifics about when it's appropriate, when it's not. And there are 4 cases that are mentioned. I sent you all a link. And some of them are kind of obvious, but other ones are very nuanced. So Lori, I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Well, you hit it on the head, is that essentially it's easier if we have something in our municipal code that says, this is the event we think formally initiates land use code changes. This is the event, but we don't have that. And so it's, as Nora mentioned, in the future, it's something good for us to add to our code. But there's one case from the Ombudsman's office, which essentially says that the triggering event, in their opinion, when the city did not have a municipal code ordinance that says when this point is triggered, what event triggers this, they have to look at reading the tea leaves, essentially, what is a proceeding? And in that case, the Ombudsman's office looked at it and said, it's a planning commission hearing where you've agendized the ordinance changes that you intend to make. And so that's why Nora has that in her staff report, that at that point, we're comfortable saying that there has been, the city has formally initiated proceedings for land use code changes, which means that for the next 180 days, applicants, essentially that's the 180-day clock for applicants. I don't know if that makes it any muddier or any clearer.
It's sort of nuanced, and I apologize, I didn't write the law, either one. And they didn't even consult me, you know? But if you want to be perfectly clear and perfectly clean about this process, then the temporary land use ordinance, like you did on overnight accommodations, may be appropriate. If you don't want to take that kind of make that kind of a sort of statement and definitive action, if you think that looks hostile in some way, or, I mean, our intent is certainly to move forward with this so that we can get to a point where we can allow them in certain zones under specific regulations, maybe, but we don't know yet exactly. So if you want to be really clear, then you could do a TZO or temporary zoning ordinance. If you want to kind of leave it open until we see what's going on with the state legislature and some other efforts, we could do that too. And then the 180 days would really start when we talk to the Planning Commission about the first set of amendments that we want to look for longer term in the code. That help?
Do we have any people who are jumping at the bit to apply to have?
Not yet. And that's a good question. And Mike asked that question, or somebody, Galen did. And I tried to answer this afternoon. So We have one business who was in the old, the little strip commercial mall where the Radcliffe is now. That's Moab Tourism Center. And they are moving across the street. And I don't know, it was one of the fast food restaurants, and the property owner bought that and is converting that into the laundromat and the tourism center, which is what he had in the other building. So it's the same use, the same, as far as I know, he's not changing his business model. He's just moving it across the street because the project is now a hotel. So that's one. We also had a call on adding vehicles to a fleet and whether they were allowed to do that. So no, people aren't, chomping at the bit, but they probably will be relatively soon.
Well, that's what the caution of even our overnight accommodations moratorium is, trying to make that happen so that more people wouldn't be vested. So while we work it out, I would lean towards having the temporary moratorium until we really figure out what it is we want. I mean, because I feel like we're trying to deal with this issue, but the issue is the fact that they're loud. And would we be so constrictive of new business if they were electric? Would we be so constrictive if they were trailered? I don't know that we would. So
kinds of regulations we could come up with to make them still perhaps allowable in certain zones. But that's we have to work through that process.
I think we're on a slippery slope when we tell people that they can't expand their business, that they can't grow their business. It's like Karen said. I mean, would we be this? Would it cause this much turmoil if they were quieter? And that just seems to be the crux of it, is that they are so loud. We're not going to say, no, you can't build another bookstore. We're not going to say, no, you can't have another coffee shop because people are too hyped up on their caffeine. I mean, I'm just still really having a hard time with restricting one certain kind of business. Maybe a temporary zoning ordinance is the way to go. Did I say that right, Nora? The
Yes.
Temporary thing. Guys, I'm not at the top of my game this week, so bear with me. I'm just still really struggling with targeting one kind of business and saying you can't grow it. I'm happy to listen if there's something constructive that we can do in whatever time we put on that temporary zoning action. But I'm still having a hard time with telling somebody they can't grow, they can't succeed, they can't make their business better.
Well, if it helps at all, it was requested to be more equitable across the line that we add bike shops to this moratorium. Just kidding. I mean, obviously, if we are restricting any more businesses to come through, we basically have given the golden ticket to every existing business that exists right now. I mean, it's like having the permits for the Grand Canyon, or I mean, it really we've limited any other opportunities for other people. And again, I just feel like our issue is quality of life for our residents. And so if we could come to to some sort of workable accommodation where they aren't affecting residents, then I just don't think we'd have this issue. So
let me ask it this way. So was it your intent as council members to initiate a prohibition of new ATV businesses? And if it was your intention, then did you intend that to be temporary solution or a permanent solution?
That was not my intention. Other people may feel differently.
Speaking for myself,
Which part, Tawny? The temporary part or the moratorium part?
It was not my intention at all to limit any kind of new business growth. I think we are wanting to solve an issue, like Karen says, quality of life for our residents. And we're using one type of business to create a legislative fix. And
we're using a hammer where we could use some other tool.
If we made the decision to do something, I certainly would rather see it be temporary and let us work out the details and come to a compromise or come to some sort of a solution. And I don't think it's the tour operators that have been the biggest culprits. It's like the mayor said some time ago, it's the volume and it's the volume. If you count up the number of machines that the tour operators have, I mean, being generous. Are there 500 rental machines in this town? I don't know. I don't know what the number is, but if there are 500 rental machines and there are 2,500 people up on sand flats on any given day, the 500 rental machines are not the problem.
Right. Mike, you were gonna say something, I think?
well, yeah, Nora, I was, well, the simple answer is, yeah, I'm looking for a permanent solution, but I'm looking for a permanent solution to noise. This strikes me as a rather oblique way to try to mitigate noise by restricting rentals and stuff and so forth like that. And I think it's pretty, I agree with you, Tanya. I think it's a pretty slippery slope. And I've been advocating for more direct measurement noise techniques, a couple of different ways to do that. But before, at some point tonight, Mayor Emily, with your permission at the right time, I want to ask Laurie, there were some late breaking emails just before the meeting from Chrissy Sloan. She's been talking to county folks, and what Chrissy came back to me, which is the most interesting thing of all, when all this got started, for years, all right, I've complained about ATV noise like everybody else, and I was always told state law says we can't discriminate against them. Okay, if it's other kind of street legal things can do their thing on the street, we can't pass laws that are particular to a particular class of vehicles like UTVs. And so that really tied our hands, and I thought, well, there's nothing we can do about it. All right, and then all of a sudden, sometime last fall, the rules changed. Okay, and all of a sudden, we threw out all these proposed regulations about rentals and this and that, and started talking about noise metering and on and on and on, and how shall we do it in checkpoints or should we do it on flyby, blah, blah, blah. And so now Chrissy has come back to the question of, well, what can we do that's legal, all right, discrimination. And so I would like Lori to explain to me at some point what really changed if for all these years, state law effectively precluded us from doing anything that tries to discriminate against UTVs. Why all of a sudden have we proceeded down a multiple paths here to doing exactly that?
So Mike, I think those are really valid questions. Right now, what I'm trying to get you guys to tell me is what you meant by initiating land use change.
I agree. So that's why I asked if you
go away and you guys can talk about all the other stuff.
Okay, fine.
Ronnie.
So Nora, my understanding was due to requests from the community and just what seemed to be just like an ever-growing acceleration, that we had overwhelming requests from the community to try and put some kind of freeze or hold on the growth. So in my understanding, we were taking action to not expand beyond the number of businesses or business licenses that we had. So I understood we were doing that. And I just had some initial confusion coming in tonight because reading the packet, I was a little bit, my brain was in a slightly different place about what kind of tool and I get a little bit confused if it's the TLUR or the TLUO, versus the second one. But, the first one we've used before, I was just kind of trying to understand, sometimes you have a multi-tool and sometimes you have a single-use tool. And anyway, I was trying to figure out how many blades were in my Swiss Army knife with that one. So, so I think now in the meeting, from your extra explanation, I think I'm understanding, and I think I'm understanding from you that if we again use said tool, the first one, that we do have time to figure out the nuances of how one can use that, right? Like that gives you the time to figure out, okay, well, maybe we don't want to see fleet growth unless it's electric fleet growth. Or I mean, am I right? Is that what part of what you're getting the time to discuss? So in that sense, I would join Mike and Kaylin, and I can't remember, Karen was interested in that one too. I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. Others?
Are we still on the
First question, yeah. And I think, Nora, I think everyone's saying yes to the temporary moratorium.
The TGO, okay. Lori and I will prepare something and bring it to you.
And that the idea is that we are gonna move through this and have some decisions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the next question?
I'm sorry?
What was the next question?
Removal of new ATV activities from all permitted uses in all zones. So that is what you're thinking is maybe rather than change the code, just do a 180-day TZO to look at the range of options that we might have to regulate these things and not necessarily go in and prohibit them and make them non-conforming uses right now.
Real quick. So if you are in, what zones can you currently operate a rental or a guide tour business? All
boy.
commercial or?
No, it's as I said, the definitions are not consistent. And there's little bits and pieces in a bunch of the different land use types. So I would say the C4 is probably our most zones with the most permitted uses. So it's pretty loose there. The
C4 or C3?
C4.
But does C4 not, it appears that C4 doesn't permit vehicle rentals. And they are identified as a permitted use in C3, but not in C4, which is counterintuitive.
I think it allows guide services. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think what we need is like the work on the definitions and then the proposal of which zones then those definitions would be included. Council, unless anybody disagrees with that, I think that's a big thumbs up for number 2. It's just code revision work that we need to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone disagree? Okay. What was the third question?
Whether it was this is the only one that's sort of unanswered. Was it your intent to include Jeep type vehicles that are not modified in this regulation?
So Nora, can I just interrupt on this one, just so we're clear? It right now, the moratorium affects type 1, 2, and 3 ATVs, and Tani brought up a good point. We were saying modified Jeeps. I checked with an expert in the field, and the words we should be using are modified four-wheel drive vehicles, or they're also known as rock crawlers. So the moratorium actually covers that type. And so you can see in the staff report, we're letting you know that, and then just clarifying if that's actually what you wanted to do. There's no further action necessary. If that's not what you wanted to do, we're just asking you to tell us that and tell us what change you want, and then we could go ahead and make that.
Great. She said it better than me. Perfect.
Ronnie.
Yeah, so when I read the agenda summary, I mean, that's kind of the way I read it. It said unmodified Jeeps are not type 3 ATVs, so are not affected by the moratorium. So then the question posed to us was the intent to impose a moratorium on modified Jeeps? And I remember we were given kind of the breakdown of vehicles in October. So yeah, that was my understanding that was part of it.
But what about unmodified Jeeps or four-wheel drive vehicles?
No, those are, but we're not concerned because those aren't ATVs.
Right, but I want to make sure that the council knew that they weren't ATVs and that they wouldn't be included in this. I just want to, because when we had the situation come up, we had a number of different opinions about the answer to the question.
I understand that unmodified Jeeps are not included, and I am happy to proceed with the temporary land use regulation as drafted.
Okay, perfect.
And does anybody disagree with what Kaylin just stated?
I didn't hear the
As long
last
as
part.
the modified ones are still part of it. Yeah, my understanding is modified are part of it, unmodified are not part.
Correct.
I am going to disagree on this one only because I don't have a problem with rock crawlers. They're not very many of them. They don't go cruising up and down the highway so much, and they're not the noisy guys as far as I'm concerned. So I don't really have a problem with them.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. All right.
But everybody else did. So the majority appears to support.
So we're gonna understand that as at this point the existing resolution moratorium is in place. The council's not requesting any changes with regard to what types of vehicles are covered by it.
That works. Okay.
The other, Nora, did you want to talk about the second question?
The business licenses?
Right. The question arose that the moratorium covers new business licenses. And so we want to make sure that the council understood that it applies to new business licenses and that it didn't apply to an existing business expanding their fleet. And so the question then is, if it was your intent to have the moratorium apply to an existing business expanding your fleet, if that's the case, let us know, and then let us know what changes you want. If that you do not intend it to apply to expanding an existing business's fleet, then no further action is necessary.
I hadn't thought it through at the time we passed it, but I would like in the short term to cap fleet sizes until we figure out how to move forward in a way that allows business expansion without increasing the number of noisy vehicles on the road.
Okay. Others?
I'll support Kaylin on that.
Myself also.
So what we will need to do then, and we were going to do this anyway, actually, is call all of the ATV businesses and find out how many vehicles of each type they have today so that we know, because we don't have that information on our business.
So would it be as simple as just requesting copies of vehicle units registered for the use?
Yeah, the county has started doing this, and I think they are willing to send us the information that they're requesting. So they have their business license renewals, I believe, January 1. and they started asking for this information on the business license renewal form. And I believe they're willing to send us that information. They've asked for some of the same information, some type of vehicle identification information.
They're also concerned from a taxing standpoint that they may not be getting sales tax like they should be. I don't know enough about that to really speak on it, but there are some other concerns that they have about these vehicles maybe not being, I don't know. Anyway, I would assume that they would be registered, but I could certainly ask that question too.
Ronnie?
I think I saw somewhere in maybe it was in your agenda summary, Nora, was the recommendation then if the city went in that direction that we need to modify our business whatever renewal form to ask that question or in future.
Yeah, and the renewal forms go out in June, and so we could certainly make a change to ask that question. I mean, we don't need any kind of ordinance or anything like that to do that. So then we would have that information on the, but on the existing ones, we'll just call around to try to get a sense and tell people that at least for the time, we'll include that in the temporary zoning ordinance, that for the time being, we don't want expansion of any vehicles or increase in fleet number.
Now, are we going to be asking for like good faith number, or are we going to be asking for evidence of existing fleet number? And that's why I was saying, if you ask for copies of registration for each vehicle, then you have hard data of existing fleet number, as opposed to hey, how many vehicles do you have? 200. Okay.
I don't want to create an administrative burden for these folks, but if it's really easy for them to do, that would be the ideal situation.
I'm sure they have to keep their machines registered and current. So I would think putting together that paperwork would not be an administrative headache.
Okay, I can ask.
But I don't know, council, do you agree with that? Is that a hard ask for a company?
Well, my vote would be to ask the businesses if it's a burden or not. They'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
I wonder if it's possible for the state licensing organization to release that information if the business owners give them permission, so that they don't have to collate the information. They just say, state agency, I authorize you to release information to this city or county for the vehicles registered in this business name.
Either way, we're looking for the least amount of burden for our local businesses.
Right.
So that
But we also want to get the information fairly quickly. So who knows? We can try both avenues. So that's really it. All I needed on the land use stuff.
Well, I think it's worth it to say, thanks, Nora, for putting this out there so that we can have clarification. Depending on, how things work with the legislative session, all this might be moot point. Our goal has consistently been to solve for noise. And so we're kind of poking at it to try to figure that out. And so, but at the same measure, we're not trying to stop any particular industry, but what we're trying to do is focus on our quality of life for our residents and work on the noise issue. So that's that. Okay, hopefully that was helpful for you, Nora. Okay, have a good night.
Oh, sorry. Mary, may I ask one more question?
Sure, go ahead.
And I'll be quick. During this time, Nora, another issue it feels that residents are having is these, pop-up ATV businesses that, show up on dirt lots. I mean, and we really are not trying to create, I don't know, just a haphazard community where, businesses just get to, grab a permit that's not brick and mortar. They're not really vested the same way as other businesses would be. Is that potential to look at during this time?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's a lot of gray area right now. So it would be good for us to try to make it more black and white about, permanent use and no temporary uses and some of those kinds of things.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Ronnie, did you want to say?
Just to say that, I mean, I know some of you have been going out and, like trying to sample sound with Cliff Kuntz and different business owners over time have written us, but the fact that nobody really commented on this tonight, I'm just wondering if we have to make more of an effort to reach out to make them part of this conversation. I mean, obviously, ultimately, it's a personal choice, but I mean, I just want people listening to know. I don't think it's our intention to not include them in this conversation or be using their feedback. So if anyone has thoughts or suggestions about that, I just, I know that's one thing, we should be doing.
I appreciate that call out, Ronnie. I do appreciate that because I do feel like we're talking about the issues of the industry and that we want to have participation from members of that community. So call out to them to being engaged in productive, solution-oriented problem solving.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my last comment would be, I mean, I can understand how some of us are concerned that some of this may seem extreme on some level, but I mean, we're kind of dealing with the exacerbation over the years of having very few tools or being told we couldn't use certain tools or certain avenues, open to other states weren't open to us. So at some point you start making a list of options that you have and you try the things that you can. So, I mean, everybody should know, I think we're all frustrated. We're just trying to, try things and see. Yeah.
Thanks, Ronnie. And thanks, Nora. We'll move on now to new business. Item 10.1, a letter from the Moab City Council in support of President-elect Biden prioritizing an action to restore the Bears Ears National Monument to its original size as created by President Obama's administration in Proclamation 9558 in 2016. Briefing and possible action. Kaylin?
I so move to authorize you to sign that letter.
Thank you. Is there a second? Oh, who seconded?
I did.
Oh, thank you, Tawny. Discussion?
I think it's a no-brainer.
I know there were some edits, so I guess we just have to make sure those get made to the final. Yeah.
Kaylin, do you want to speak to the edits?
I'm not sure what edits you're talking about.
Oh, I think at some point, gray eyes, we've changed.
Oh, that's the next one.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Too much or too little caffeine today. Never mind. I'm going back in my hole.
Okay, I will call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Aaron?
Sorry, aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Okay, now I know, yes, what we're voting on. And I'm still for October and December, but yes, on this letter, aye.
And Tawny?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 10.2, a letter from Moab City Council in support of San Juan County Commission in its denial of the requested special event permit for the 2021 Rally on the Rocks trade show. Kaylin?
You muted.
I can make the motion. What?
Oh, I'm giving you the floor to make any comments or to motion.
Okay. This is something that I was confused about. Apparently it was a denial of a lease request for the site rather than a special event. So I don't know if, so other than that, Ronnie, do you want to make a motion with your amendments?
Oh, Okay, do I need to read them and like the spelling now, or can I just say, I mean, do I have to list them?
I think if they're just basic like grammatical or spelling edits, you're fine to just say edits proposed. If
Okay,
it's substantive, then
I
you
believe that's what it was. Kaylin, given your comment just now, was there any phrasing that you thought needed to be changed in any of the language of the letter based on denial of leave request?
No, it was just that it might be to move to authorize the mayor to execute and send the proposed letter in support of the San Juan County Commission.
Gotcha.
Denial of a requested
Okay.
lease.
Okay, I can do that. Let's see. I move to authorize the mayor to execute and send the proposed letter in support of the San Juan County Commission in its denial of a lease request for the 2021 Rally on the Rocks trade show.
Thank you. Ronnie, is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mike. Can we be sure to get to Summer whatever is the finalized copy with the edits before, so Summer will be awaiting a new draft. Okay.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
So they have already denied this though, correct? And we're just saying we supported the fact that they denied it?
Yeah, I think this is a thank you letter.
Is it? Did it say thank you? No. It didn't, did it?
Yes.
It says we would like to extend our sincere gratitude. I think that counts as a thank you.
Oh, for denying it. And I mean, is this just like, I don't know. It seems an odd thing to do. And I mean, how often do we get involved in their, I mean, is it just because the county, I'm just curious the intent. Besides, thank you. I mean, in terms of it, just because the county denied it and we're trying to,
I think the county sent a letter very, very similar last week. They authorized it.
Okay.
Well, Karen, I think the letter says to San Juan County that thank you guys so much for improving our quality of life, is not only yours. And in my mind, that's a legitimate purpose for the letter.
Okay.
I think part of the issue is that there are actions in the valley impact 3 or more different local governments, and there's residents. So maybe we can do a better job of collaborating in the future so that like when things happen, like we've been in contact beforehand. But in this case, it was a little clunky, I think, the overall, like the rally bouncing around to different entities. And so, but yes, it is basically just saying, thank you, this really affects us. And even though it might have made you some money, we really appreciate that you took the quality of life of up here in the far north into account.
And the letter does state that that sentiment that you just said, that we do share valley, and so that coordination is appreciated. And based on their discussions down there, they did say, why not host the event in Blanding or Monticello to make revenue for San Juan County. So anyway, that's the letter. And unless there's any other comments, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Karen.
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Ronnie.
I'm
Mike.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 10-3, proposed resolution 1, first resolution of the year, 2021. A resolution memorializing the designation of council members and staff as liaisons to various community boards and organizations. So Joel, if you would be so kind as to share your screen with the working Word document of which would have any potential edits. Can you scroll down? I'm sorry. I think my edit might be lower.
Scroll down.
Yeah.
What was your edit?
Oh, interesting. Didn't show up.
You went through and updated everything. So what was your edit?
Oh, gosh, it's so little on my screen. For the Association of Local Governments. Oh, it doesn't list anybody as an alternative, but I actually talked to, so with the Association of Local Governments, the way that it works is that every county has somebody from the county commission, and every county also has a mayor. And since I'm like the only mayor of a city in Grand County, I kind of de facto serve on this board. But in conversations with folks at the county, what Jay Lynn, who was the representative last year, all through last year, we kind of leaned on each other as being the alternative. And so it's just a very long meeting, and it's a very hard meeting to sit in for somebody else. And so we just talked about having the county as the alternate. I know that it was a little hard for Joel to sit in on one of them. So that's all. That was the change I made there. I think I put county.
You did have that. You did have that, Mayor, and I removed it because it was red, and I'm like, I don't remember what this was, and so I put a note in my to add it back in because I wasn't sure. It didn't have a note who added it, so I'm like, I don't know who put this in there.
Well, I went to edit, and then it didn't pop up the comment. It just let me edit. So then I was like, oh, I should make it red so that it stands out as an edit. But it's such a little edit. It's fine. It can either be blanks or we can put county designee. Why don't we put that, county designee? Did anybody else have edits or changes? The other thing I wanted to talk about was LPC, legislative policy. Do we have LPC on here? I thought we did.
Yeah, it was on there in the packet.
There it is, ULCT Legislative Policy Committee. So I just wanted to check in with everybody. So that's me and Ronnie, Joel, and this says Carly.
But last year, that's what we sent it to Ronnie, Carly, and I.
Okay. So I think Ronnie and I were wondering if Tawny was on there instead of Carly.
No,
but that
Tawny
must have been the year prior.
Tawny was on it the year before. I actually went and pulled the meeting from last year when we did this and rewatched it today to make sure that all of this was accurate to what we did last year. And then I also went in, and anywhere I could find term expirations or on the county boards, I added that on this side as well. So this asterisk is that Kaylin is actually appointed by the county for that one. We don't appoint that. And then it just has the languages to like where that's found, that rule. And then anywhere there was a term expiration, I added that in the side note as well. So it's accurate. If we want, I don't know if you guys want to go through it, every one of them, or if those were the only ones you wanted to talk about, but it does have all that information and it is accurate as far as the rest of it. Ronnie had added a note that the Grand County EMS SSD, and I got that in there. And then about the only one we were missing was the Moab Museum, which was Tawny. And so I got that one on there as well. So it should all be there. Like I said, I went and listened to the meeting. I listened to it twice, actually. It was about 19 minutes was all, and just went through it. And then I went through and tried to find those dates for the boards that I could find. So
perfect. Wonderful.
Okay, I had one or two questions when it's a good time.
Go for it.
That was just, I know I'm down as the alternate for Canyonlands Healthcare and Trail Mix, and I'm happy to stay there. I didn't know, Caitlin, are you occasionally attending Trail Mix? I mean, Corey's never called me and said, I can't make it, will you go? So, I mean, I can stay on there. I just didn't know if it had been one that you had been going to anyway, Caitlin.
Very occasionally I'll go if there's
Okay.
something of interest.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm happy to either stay on there or switch it to you, whatever you prefer. But yeah, like I said, Corey's never called me to ask me to attend for him. So, kind of the same thing with healthcare. I don't know if it'd be weird, Tawny, if I showed up now that, you know, I'm on EMS and we decided maybe those should be separate, but I do know the history. So you can just let me know if that's.
And when Ronnie, when I did listen to the recording from last year, that's why you were the healthcare as well. And you had recommended we break it up because of the potential conflict.
Okay, yeah. So I think that's fine. And my only other question, Mayor, was going back to that question about could we or should we set up a little legislative committee, and would that be on this list then?
I like that idea. We could formalize it. I think that might be helpful. And yeah, I think that would be good. Because otherwise it just feels like, especially with 45 days and a lot of things happening, it's hard not to feel like, you know, we've got control over what's going on. And so staff is definitely following it. Like Joel was talking about, if we had a formal legislative committee, I think that would work, because then that committee could huddle and the rest of the council can feel good that that committee is, you know, moving forward with, you know, suggestions of letters and suggestions for outreach. And I think that's a good thing. So, and I think we'd said, so on that committee would be 2 council members, myself and Joel and Carly.
And I think the attorney too. I mean, well, just because I looked at how the county did it and that made sense to me. Yeah.
Joel, what do you, yeah.
Sounds good to me. I would recommend, that's exactly the makeup I would have recommended.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, like during session, would you like meet once a week? And then, I mean, like, how would that work?
I think if anyone wants to like call a meeting of the committee, we would just come together and do a quick Zoom huddle. Hey, there's a bill. Let's talk about it. It's popping up tomorrow. What's our strategy? That's the way I see it, because it's, you know, like
they'll move quickly.
We have to be able to respond quickly. Yeah. And we would all follow the, you know, the briefing from the league and have our little tracking system in place and be coordinated. So so what 2 council members would like to serve on this committee? Ronnie and who?
I mean, I'm happy to do it, but I mean, if there are other council members who really want to be involved in legislation, I mean, you know, and don't have that chance because I'm on LPC, you know, we can switch it up. I mean, I think there's some advantages to doing both, but you know, I don't want to take away anyone else's chance of, getting in the weeds, in the muck.
Lonnie, I think it's good to have you on there just because you're aware of those meetings on Monday, of kind of what's coming down the pipe. And I mean, you definitely seem attuned to what's important and what's not, you know. I mean, I'm not trying to put the burden on you completely, but it does seem you have good tracking.
Very good tracking skills. And if you wanted to ask anybody for a reference, that would be Mary McGann and your team effort with the UMTRA project. So.
Well, one of my things is, maybe the committee can get together and figure out how we can create some useful tools for the rest of the council, right? Because Mayor, it was my understanding with ULCT, I mean, even if we're not a voting member, can we be on these daily briefings and stuff? Or
yeah.
So
the briefing is a tool, and then and then the tracking page is a tool. Yeah.
Because another tool that I would just like to get for the council is, I mean, I think some people have never had it, and some of us who are older on the council, I don't remember, frankly, because my memory's getting bad if we had it, but it might be nice to have a little training from either Casey or, you know, just on, yeah, I mean, there's just on just covering some of the logistics of how the legislative session goes and how to be most effective and fastest, because things move so fast. So I could kind of use a little brush up tutorial, and I don't know if anybody else would benefit, but.
So yeah, Victoria, I can talk to Victoria.
Yeah.
She's the government liaison with the League of Cities and Towns, and we could see if she could put together a quick engagement, you know, 101. The reality is that engagement this year is very different because of COVID. And so, I mean, that's why they've been hammering in just have your legislator programmed in your phone so that you can text them.
Yeah.
Hey, this bill, we just want to let you know, we're neutral, we oppose, or we support. For the things that, matter to us. And so the huddle would kind of give us the check, as bills pop up and some strategy. But I can see if the only thing is like, it's next week. So she may say, are you kidding me? And I can ask her.
Something good for us to put in place. Yeah.
Emily, it's interesting. I'm curious, like what would happen, if we have disconnect with our, appointed legislator, like who do we go to when, again, like we deal with issues all the time that have to do with local control and we don't necessarily have the representation needed.
So I think that that we continue to, regardless of whether or not we think our legislator is going to, accept our position. I think it's regardless. We share where we stand on certain legislation that's important to us, even if we think they might disagree. And then, for what it's worth, we all have taken efforts, I think, to meet other legislators and may have other relationships with other legislators, and that's great too. So I guess I would encourage, and what I will do is, of bills that are important to me, I will reach out first to our representatives, of which we have 3, 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate. And, Representative Watkins and Representative Albrecht, they may serve you, or they might, to say that we have 3 is even not actually true. You have one or the other, but I think in Moab, we kind of feel like we've got 3. So that's sort of our delegation. I'd reach out to them, and then I'd reach out to all the other legislators you've got relationships with.
And yeah, it really just depends on what bill is and who's running it and who's taking positions on it. I mean, every bill's different just depending on who your connections with and what the bill issue is. So.
Yeah. And Karen, as you and I learned, that we may develop a relationship with a legislator that's not in our area because they run a bill that we don't particularly like. So we get to know them very well. And then it turns out that they're actually quite a good friend to Moab. So yeah, I think that's where I'd be. And the huddle, this committee huddle, I think will serve us well because it'll just kind of keep us all on the 45-day track together.
So are we thinking Ronnie then?
Yes.
And who else?
I can dangle a carrot, I can get you some chocolate, just if anybody needs an incentive to step into that other spot.
Do I get chocolate?
I don't have the flexibility to do it right now. I don't have the ability to just drop things and attend even a Zoom meeting. So
we don't need 2 council members. I think we just said 2 council members. So it's like, 2, but we don't need them. I mean,
I think having 2 would be better though, because if this gets fast and furious and we're trying to have a huddle Tuesday at noon and we can only get a hold of 1, we can proceed with who we can get a hold of. So You're
Yeah.
right, we don't need to, and by default in that moment, we may only have one.
You can put me in as a default, and if I can get away, I can get away.
And Kaylin's hair is really standing up tall, like it's.
Right. Well, when I heard about the carrot, that really intrigued me.
The carrot or the chocolate?
You have a carrot instead of chocolate.
Oh, did you say chocolate? I heard carrot.
I started with the carrot, but I really gravitate to chocolate.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Okay, so Tawny, or Kaylin, are you saying that you're in, or Tawny, you're saying, because the huddle could also just be, a quick Zoom.
It could even be a phone call, depending on what's happening.
Oh yeah,
Yes, I'm willing.
groovy.
Yeah, and if something happens and you can't get a hold of somebody else, just if I can, I will.
Yeah, and then you guys just let us know what you need from us to try to use our resources to get a hold of, to make efforts to rally, to get support. So.
Well, I like Kaylin, your offer to be on this because you've proven yourself a letter writer, as evidenced by today's agenda. And so one thing that we might really consider your role to be, if you so choose to accept this challenge, is that you could pen a quick letter that we could then put in the right hands. Oh my
Here's
God.
a carrot.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, that sounds good. So is there a motion to support what would the motion be? Memorialize the designation?
I propose
With
to
the
approve
change
the
this
resolution.
proposed.
I'm trying to read this off my phone and it's mini. Resolution 1-2021, a resolution memorializing the designation of council members and staff as liaisons to various community boards and organizations.
Second.
Thank you. And it was the motion to also to include changes as presented?
With changes as presented.
Yes, Kaylin. Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. I will call for the vote. Mike.
Aye.
Tawny.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye. Am I
Ronnie.
mute? No.
Aye.
Kaylin.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Item 10.4, appointment of the 2021 Mayor Pro Tem. Tawny said she'd keep doing it. So I do appoint you again. And 10.5, appointment of the council member responsible for reviewing the city's bills in 2021. I also just asked Tawny if she'd keep doing it. She said yes. So
kind of fun.
And so it shall be. And now we're at item 11, approval of the bills against the city of Moab. Tawny, is there a motion?
There is. I move to approve the bills in the amount of $498,337.65.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Kaylin. Discussion?
I'm just wondering, Tawny, when are you guys going to get around to forgetting about the 43 cents part of it?
What 43 cents?
Well, you know what I'm talking about. It's always intriguing to me, that we balance the people report things to the nearest cent. So I don't know.
Because that's
I'm
what they added up to be.
That seems like a curious statement from a mathematician.
Yeah. What's up? 2021 mathematicians are rounding. The crazy year.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, seriously, thank you for doing that, Tawny. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's actually fun. It's a good way to know how we spend our money.
Yeah.
Spend money
Okay.
on cracked corn and neutering cats.
Oh my.
Not all of it.
On that note, okay, I'll call for the vote. Mike?
Aye.
Tawny?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Thank you all for an awesome meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
I so
moved.
move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, staff. Thank you, council. Thank you all. Have a great night.